Hello everybody, welcome to SHIN and welcome to another Jumputi Heroes video. Today we're going to be discussing a top 10, and it's the top 10 characters I would like to see get a new version in 2023. Now there's a lot of options for this. I was mainly aiming to pick characters who I felt had been either severely disserviced or had aged particularly badly, and there are a lot of characters that fall into that category, and if there's any I miss, be sure to let me know in the comments. But I feel like some of these characters especially, they should have a character of a certain rarity, or they should have another chance at being a prominent character in the game. Maybe they were just added too early, or maybe the devs didn't value them enough, or maybe the version of the character they added that right, but now we need a new version. To start things off, I want to talk about one that's maybe one of the less exciting ones, and that is SHIN SEIJURO from iShield 21. Now, the reason I've chosen him is because if you look at the battle rushes, we have Seto Kaiba, who has had multiple different versions and has had a special tower limited, which was a limited on the Taiwan server. And then you have Orochimaru as well, who got upgraded to a limited on both versions of the game. And then SHIN SEIJURO, who I think was added too early because he's one of the bigger characters in iShield 21. He's not had anything. And what's quite sad is they seemingly have just stopped doing battle rushes. They reprint them very rarely, I think because the rewards are quite good compared to how difficult the stage is. But there's also like not much value to beating a stage anymore, other than the rewards, obviously, but it's not like a progressive thing. I'm not making my SHIN SEIJURO any stronger by beating the stage more, you know? And I think that's a shame because he's such a prominent character in iShield 21. He's basically the main antagonist, the main opponent of Senna, the main rival, and didn't really get the love he deserved. I'm really sad about that. I know ultimately when he was added, it was kind of a, you know, Battle Rush was kind of a big thing when it was added. But now Battle Rush has kind of been put to the side. Occasionally it'll be reprinted, you get your rewards, but it's not a game mode they focus on. They're not adding new content. They never added a Battle Rush of the 4th type. Which was the 4th type? Yellow, I suppose. Yeah, they never added a yellow battle rush, and they've never added more stages to it. Like Genkai Battle got the Super Genkai Battle. They never did anything like that with Battle Rush, and you know, maybe they will do that at some point. But I think in the meantime, if we could at least get like a standard gacha version of SHIN SEIJURO, I'd be down. And then maybe a limited. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit biased towards iShield 21, perhaps, but definitely at least a standard gacha. He's earned that much at least. Or even if it was another free unit, if it was like a proper catastrophe class stage with an aura costume and all that stuff, so that at least it was an event that people could do and they'd have a usable free-to-play unit. But anyway, next up I have another SEIJURO actually SEIJURO AKASHI from KUROKAMI no Basuke. We know that KUROKAMI no Basuke has an event coming up this year, and this is a very obvious pick. I know you could argue Aomine or Kisei could do with new versions. We definitely could do with a new version of standalone Kagami or Kuroko. But the fact that Akashi is a free-to-play unit that has dated horribly, and even when he came out, he was Transcendent class. He was never anything above that, though, to be fair. I think when he came out, stuff above that didn't really exist, or at least it wasn't very common. And as a Transcendent class event, he did get a costume. He got a nice little summer costume, but his sprite has aged horribly, and his kit has aged horribly. He is one of the most important characters in KUROKAMI no Basuke. Needs to get a new version. I argue that he deserves to be limited. But if you wanted to make him a catastrophe, I suppose that would be okay. But really, he does deserve it. I mean, come on, guys. KUROKAMI no Basuke historically has been a bit patchy with content. There have been times when it's had nothing. And we said eventually it will get limited and it will be Kuroko and Kagami. And it did happen. And I'm grateful for that. And we got Aomine, and I'm grateful for that too. But we still haven't finished a Generation of Miracles. We still don't have Midorima. And I think as the current lineup looks, you could make an argument that any of them are sort of okay as they are. I prefer a new version of Kisei. Murasaki Bara's probably fine as he is, but you can't have that transcendent class Akashi in that lineup. It doesn't work, and it's not right. Kuroko no Basuke fans know it's not right, so he's got to be added. And if he's a limited, hey, I'm cool with that. Next up, we have a new version of MEDAKA. Now, obviously, MEDAKA Box is getting an event this year. We know this. And I think the MEDAKA Box fans are very happy because content's been a bit dry. I'm going to be honest. We had no content between... How long was it? It was a very long time. I think it was like between the end of 2018 and the start of this year. There was no MEDAKA Box content. And then we got 2 characters added, which is fine. It's nice. But then it's gone dry again. And we deserve a limited version of MEDAKA. We do. I don't actually know what they're going to do at a feature festival because there's so much content in the series that is currently not represented in the game. And you kind of at least have to go back and give MEDAKA a new version. And I would argue Kumagawa needs a new version at some point as well. He could have easily been in this list, but I would argue even though he is more popular than MEDAKA, I think it's more egregious to have so many dated versions of the protagonist. I think you need a limited version of the protagonist that can somehow fit into the current meta, can somehow be useful. And yeah, Kumagawa at some point should get a limit. I agree with that. He's so popular, and he's a super strong character in universe, so yes, of course. But for now, at least sort your protagonist out, please. I'm begging. Especially if we're getting a feature festival, it only makes sense. Next is a character that we actually have to go backwards in the story from their original version added to Jumputi, which these devs, they don't like to do that. In the past, we only move forward. That's what they like to do. Only sometimes in like throwaway events will they move backwards, but in this case, I think we kind of have to. The character I'm talking about is, of course, Shikamaru from Naruto. One of my favorite characters from the series. And he got a standard gacha unit ages ago, like really, like a long time ago. And for such a popular character to not get another version would be a little bit disappointing. And unfortunately, I don't really think there's that much content moving forward from the version that we got to add another one to the game. You know, like, I think the one we got is the battle against Hidan, which is like his big moment. And then what does he really do after that? I mean, I know he's involved, don't get me wrong, he is involved in the war arc and stuff, but it's not like a concrete bit of content that I could say, oh yeah, we'll make that version of Shikamaru and we'll put him up against that character and whatever. So I think going back to the classic Naruto storyline, which, I mean, it'd actually be a good idea for a lot of the characters in Naruto. Like, we don't need to keep pressing forward. We've pretty much reached the end at this point. We can go back and we can pick bits here and there. And I've said before, they can go back with Dragon Ball. They can go back with One Piece as well. So why not do the same with Naruto? And to have one of my favorite characters get a new version that's good, I'd be pretty happy about it. I'm not expecting a limited Shikamaru. I'm not crazy, you know. Standard gacha, again, is probably the right choice. I guess free-to-play would be alright. I mean, typically I'm not a fan of a character that's standard gacha getting another standard gacha. But in the case of Shikamaru, I'd like him to be usable. So if you wanted to make him like an event unit, I guess it's fine, but standard gacha would definitely be preferred. Next up, one that I was so disappointed we didn't get this. MYOJIN YAHIKO, the time skip version of MYOJIN YAHIKO. Yeah, okay, technically in the manga, this only equates to like a few chapters, and it's like, it's not a lot, is it? And I know there is the continuation manga where it might be more important to mention, but we don't even know if they're going to cover the continuation manga at any point. I kind of feel like they sort of had the last one as a send-off to Rurouni Kenshin. That's fine. The last Feature Festival was pretty good. It did a pretty good job of that. But I really, anyone who watched at the time will remember I did a predictions video. I really wanted to see this version of Yahiko added. And I think this would have been just such a cool way, even if it was just a standard gacha, and I think standard gacha is fine. I think that's a really cool way to add to the character. Instead, I don't think we only have the one version of Yahiko still. And that just seems silly to me. Like, he's an important character to the series. He should have at least got a version 2 where he was like a bit better. But I guess they just didn't want to. I don't know. But yes, absolutely a time skip Yahiko would be very, very cool. I'm personally batting for standard gacha. I think that would be nice. But, you know, if you want to... Event unit would be fun too. Event unit would be fun too. Next up, this is actually one of the bigger ones. We're kind of in a situation where they haven't touched this series in quite a while, but I think it's a bit of a tricky one to work with. Well, I'll just get it up right now. It's Norman from The Promised Neverland. They made an effort to cover the Goldie Pond arc, because that was specifically an arc that the anime had chosen not to cover. And it was such a popular arc, it didn't make sense that they didn't want to cover it. But Jumputi said, hey, look, this is an opportunity for us rather than focusing on the anime's failings, let's focus on what we can do. And this is one of the best decisions the developers have ever made, because this event was beloved by Promised Neverland fans. I saw people starting to play Jumputi just because of this event, because they'd never seen some of the characters, like, for example, Yugo. They'd never seen him in animation. He'd never been animated before, because he wasn't in the anime. But now, look at Jumputi, there he is. So, I would argue we should continue. The anime butchered the final arc as well, so let's go back and do it properly. There is a situation with that manga where it might be a little bit hard to pick which characters would be added for the final arc. There might be a lot of V2s, but even if you just threw him into a random event, limited Norman post time skip, this would go hard. This would absolutely go hard. I know so many people that would be gassed about him being added, and if it can be a feature festival, I'm on board. If it's just a standalone, I'm on board. Either way, I am on board. I'm hoping he gets added, and then we'll just have to find a way to get a limited Ray at some point as well. But for now, this will do. Next up, maybe a bit more of a niche pick. We have SAKURAKO AMAMIYA from Siren. I think, even though Siren is like a much smaller series in terms of popularity, and, you know, it got a feature festival, which is probably more than we ever could have asked, and we were very happy. Us Siren fans were delighted to see it added. I did feel like having AMAMIYA as a transcendent was a bit of a disservice to the character. She is very strong in universe, and she does get a power up later on that I would argue is almost, it's maybe limited worthy. And at the moment, all she has is a transcendent class event unit. Similar situation to AKASHI, although I would say AKASHI is from a much more popular series, so the argument is stronger there. But absolutely, even if this was just standard gacha, the fact that she doesn't have a standard gacha is mad to me. So either as a standard gacha or a limited, I'm absolutely down. If she got another event unit, I don't think I'd be particularly happy about that execution, but I'll take what I can get, to be honest. In terms of more Siren content being added in the future, the outlook's somewhat bleak. I don't know if they have that in their plans, but if they do, AMAMIYA, get her in there. Next up, this one, I think this will probably be the most popular pick I've made out of all of the ones on this list. That is, I want a limited Hisoka. I want Hisoka versus Crollo. The fight that has the anime covered it? I don't think the anime's covered it. Maybe it has. I'm not sure. But I know for certain the manga has covered it. It's an incredible fight. And I would 100% be on board to see Hisoka versus Crollo. We currently have two Hisokas. One of them is a seasonal, but both of them are event units. At some point, we could have had like maybe a standard gacha one, maybe from Greed Island or something. I don't know. But this battle, he 100% deserves to be a limited. I know some people might say, oh, well, would you make Crollo another event unit? Look, at the end of the day, you could make him an event unit. You could make him an enemy only, and he could drop someone else or something else, and then maybe you could make him a limited of his own later. There's options. There's certainly options. But one thing I know for sure, that we do not have a limited Hisoka. We do not even have any sort of gacha Hisoka. That's crazy talk. That is insane. Hunter x Hunter is such a popular character series, and he is such a popular character within the series. It seems crazy to me that he hasn't been done as a limited. Another one that seems a little bit crazy he hasn't been made into a limited is Trunks from Dragon Ball. We currently have, I believe, 2 versions of Trunks. I could be wrong. I think we have the standard gacha one and the one that's like before he became a Super Saiyan, like before he traveled back to the past or whatever, as a free-to-play unit. And I think both of those versions are fine as they are, but no limited. No limited. And I think a lot of people have argued that out of the modern era, is that the right way to put it? Out of the what we call the Dragon Ball Z era of Dragon Ball, probably the arc that is the best option for going back and revisiting and making a feature festival is the Cell Saga. And I'm on board with that, I suppose. There's definitely a lot of options there. I've always said they did a disservice with Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, so maybe they can rework that somehow. But I think Trunks, from the end of that arc, where he goes back to the future and he destroys all the androids and Cell, that is so cold. Absolutely would make such a cool limit. I know people will go nuts if that got added. And I'd probably summon as well. It's one of the few things left in Dragon Ball that I'd probably summon for that's like limited or above. Admittedly, if they did Super Saiyan 2 Gohan as like a Densetsu or something like that, I'd be down. I would definitely be down. I'd probably summon for that as well. But beyond that, I don't know that there's that much I would summon for from Dragon Ball. So hopefully they do this at some point. Hopefully they don't do that thing that they like to do with Dragon Ball, where it's like, oh, we're going to add a new version of this character. What should we make them? The same thing as before. Because they gave us, like, how many standard gacha Gohan, standard gacha Vegeta, standard gacha Piccolo. If they give us another standard gacha Trunks, I don't really care. I'm not going to summon for it. But if you make him a limited, hey, you've got my attention. And then the final character, we just had a Dr. Stone feature festival. There's still plenty of Dr. Stone content to adapt. I'm sure there will be another feature festival in the future. And if there is, an obvious choice for limited is post-time skip Suika. This is a character that I think a lot of people would be happy to see. I know that as the series goes on, it's actually a little bit harder to pick limited versions of characters. And I kind of get it, because it's like, I don't know, early on in the series, it's like, oh, well, give Senku a limited. Yeah, that makes sense. I would have said Tsukasa should have been limited, didn't get one, but okay, that's fine. Dr. Zeno is Ryusui. A lot of people were a bit undecided on whether they should be limiteds or not, and I kind of get it. And as we go on, it becomes a little bit more foggy on like, oh, should that character be limited? Should they be more whatever? But I think Suika, 100% limited. No doubt for me. The fact that everyone got petrified again, it was just like, well, just me now. Let's get to it. And just builds back up from scratch without all of the prior knowledge that Senku had. She had to work up from scratch. Obviously, it took her a long time, but banging part of the story. And I would be happy to see her as a limited. Or, you know, if they wanted to make her like a standard gacha, I guess. But her current unit is just an event unit, and I think that's fine for the version of the character that we have. But for this version, I'd prefer limited, but I guess standard gacha would be okay. But again, I don't know who you pick as limiteds for Dr. Stone moving forward, so we will see. But that's it for today. I think that's all of the ones I have to mention. That's all 10. Let me know in the comments if there's anybody obvious that I've missed off. I'm sure there is. And until the next video, I will see you guys next time.